In the East Blue, at Fusha village, the villagers are in a commotion upon hearing the news that Grandpa Garp has gone rogue with an unknown return date from Pirate Island. Contrary to the villagers' worries, the mayor waves his hand dismissively. How many monuments has our Garp built over the years? These little things are nothing. The villagers, hearing this, are somewhat convinced and nod repeatedly. Suddenly, a burst of joyous laughter rings out, causing the mayor to fly into a rage. What are you laughing about like you had a bountiful harvest? It turns out to be his beloved grandchild, so he has to smooch apologize to his grandchild immediately. Makino is still uneasy. I still have to worry about Grandpa Garp. Makino's little kid has been watching pictures of our Luffy lately, constantly saying Luffy, Luffy all day long. On the other side, Dayton is internally screaming, what kind of mischief are those two troublemaking grandpa and grandson up to now? At the same time, the four seas east, south, west, and north are in chaos due to earthquakes and towering tsunamis. There has never been an earthquake as overbearing as this one, causing no small damage. In the Grand Line, the whale Laboon is also restless because the earthquake is affecting the entire world, even Wano is going boom. Since the kingdom of Lolugia vanished from the map, the consequences have persisted for 6 days. Instead of a beautiful kingdom, now there's just a super huge hole, and seawater is relentlessly pouring in without any sign of stopping. The earth-shattering earthquake has caused the global sea level to rise. Many coastlines have been swallowed by the waves. At the Revolutionary Army base, everyone is stunned. The sea level has never risen this high. It must be high tide, it will go down later. That's the end of our goal of running on the sea. Many islands have sunk without a trace, and people have nowhere to live. Even sharks are casually swimming into houses for a visit. The villagers of Fusha think it's flood season. And some of them are even trying to go out to sea to get rich, but luckily someone stops them in time. Meanwhile, on Egghead Island, Vegapunk's group is also wide-eyed when they learn that the water level has risen abruptly. But before they can collect themselves, below, a military summons of cosmic scale, even larger than the legendary Buster Call, has been issued. 29 battleships, a fleet of 100 ships of all sizes, surround the island, but are being fiercely resisted by the sea beast weapons. Inside the island, Sentomaru is grumbling. I told you not to mess with the sea beast weapons. Kizaru makes excuses, they attack me first. Leading this mighty force are 9 admirals from naval headquarters. Under the command of Admiral Kizaru. He's sitting eating noodles and feeling like life is a tangled mess. Nonsense. Sentomaru, why don't you surrender and come over here with me? Sentomaru threatens, if you keep acting up, I'll shoot you. Old Man Punk created the lasers for the pacifistas by researching your abilities, and now you've come to eliminate him. Kizaru sighs, I can't protect you if you're curious about the Void Century. After all, I just sold myself to the capitalists. It's as clear as day that the ones in the laboratory are 7 scientists, including main body, along with 4 Seraphim units for protection. The gang colluding with them is none other than the infamous 4 Emperor's Straw Hat Pirates, with 10 members. The elite unit set is commanded by 3 CP0 members, Lucy, Kaku, and Stussy. And it seems the remaining CP0 troops, about 100 strong, have been kidnapped by the pacifista units commanded by Sentomaru. Kizaru shakes his head, there's no profit in this battle, the more we destroy, the bigger the loss. Looks like those guys failed their assassination mission. Sentomaru retorts, it's because the Straw Hat Pirates are here, inside a warship. Saturn is chomping down on sausages and instructing, don't let them overhear that I'm here. He nods approvingly at the headline, Straw Hat Pirates capture Dr. Vegapunk and establish a defensive barrier. It sounds impressive. Doberman quickly adds, that's Morgan's fake news. Saturn inquires about the situation, and Doberman reports, no mission completion reports from Lucy, Sentomaru is still on guard, the border dome is at 100%, completely locked down to entry and exit. Since yesterday, it's been a total blackout of information from inside. Saturn asks where the personnel and researchers on the island are. Doberman reports, they all slipped away from the island yesterday. And we're pursuing them. Saturn orders, anyone on the ship who accidentally leaks anything will be fed to the fish immediately. Doberman adds, the pirate Bonnie has also shown her face on the island. Saturn nods, Kuma's daughter. Forget it, she's worthless now, just a snot-nosed kid. Below, on a Navy warship, they frantically report to Kizaru that they've intercepted a transcontinental call from Egghead to Mariewa. Aha, a hidden call. The Navy picks up the signal. Kizaru's left hand has a multi-purpose den mushy for eavesdropping. In an authority room, a wronged voice rings out, this is York. You guys are going too far. Are you planning to off me too? I risked my life to send you guys secret information about main body's betrayal. Marcus smirks, it's true that you contributed, but in the end, you're no different from Vegapunk. York pouts, if I was interested in that ancient history stuff, would I even open my mouth? Ridiculous. Saint Nusjiro speaks up. Either way, you're really tough, surviving this long. Didn't CP0 already interrogate you? What's the situation with the Straw Hat Pirates? York scoffs, since I'm the one who called you guys, I'll leave you to guess. You guys know I control the Seraphim, so it's no surprise I survived the night. And what about your fleet surrounding the island? Are you planning to get tough with me? Saint Saturn says gently, actually, we would change our minds if you could produce that high-quality virus vaccine. York's eyes light up, oh my. So you guys desire me after all. Luckily, I sent the goods in advance. Marcus tempts, yes, this is a special request that we need. York reveals her motive, if you want that. The infrastructure to create it is on this island, just promise not to lay a hand on me in the laboratory. Saint Marcus immediately says okay. York pushes further, and also, you have to make me a fancy celestial dragon. The Gorosei nod their heads, of course, that's as easy as pie, deal. But there's one more thing, I want you to save me. Straw Hat Luffy is here, he's about to execute me. At this moment, the Gorosei and Kizaru simultaneously gasp. It turns out that York has been completely controlled by the Straw Hat Pirates, constantly screaming for the Gorosei to eliminate them all. Nami has now realized the situation. And Luffy is still clueless, but they can use York as a living shield to escape. The Straw Hats are currently recharging after yesterday's long and exhausting battle. Understanding the current situation, Bonnie believes that they simply need to use York as a shield, then quietly pack up and escape from this place. Next, Luffy asks Usopp to hand him the Den Den Mushi, and he'll negotiate directly with the Gorosei. Luffy announces to the Navy outside, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will become the king of the pirates. Right now, my crew has joined forces with Vegapunk. If you want York to live, all warships must leave here immediately. The Navy is quite shocked that Luffy would dare say this, thinking he's even more savage than the rumors. Morgan, Vivi, and Wapple, who are eavesdropping on the conversation, are equally horrified. The Gorosei try to interrogate Luffy about the situation inside, but he naively answers the same way he always does. Luckily, his crewmates stop him just in time. However, Saint J. Garcia Saturn manages to recognize Robin's voice on the other end. Saint Saturn orders his subordinates to protect three things: York, the punk records, and the fusion reactor that creates the mother flame weapon. As for the rest, erase everything, leave no trace. As for Lucci and the CP agents trapped inside, Saint Saturn isn't too concerned. To him, human lives are no different from bugs. If one dies, another will take his place. This makes the scarred Vice Admiral a little horrified. On this side, York is still quite arrogant, acting high and mighty with the Straw Hats because she has the Gorosei backing her. As a result, she gets a bump on the head from Nami. Shut up, you. Zoro tries to stop her, but the navigator won't stop hitting her. Meanwhile, Robin is also slightly bruised and has her wounds bandaged by Chopper. Her words of thanks make the captain very happy. Dr. Vegapunk is also very grateful to Robin. If she hadn't appeared in time, he might have died. While escaping from CP0, Robin's group was assisted by Kaku. Because he had to fight two Seraphim at the same time, he was seriously injured. In the end, Zoro was the one who defeated them. Lilith cries because Shaka and Pythagoras have died. This is really hard to accept. Ignoring the dire situation outside, Luffy and Bonnie are still devouring the food served by Sanji. Meanwhile, Lucci is secretly leaking information from inside to the Navy without Kaku's knowledge. Then, Usopp begins contacting the Cypher Pole agents in the basement to inquire about the situation. They're extremely grateful for the food provided by the Straw Hats and beg the crew to take them off the island. Usopp bluntly refuses their request. After all, we're still enemies. The Seraphim are also present and being controlled by bubble spheres. They're made based on the Mark III shields and have added sea stone energy, making them an effective weapon against those with devil fruit powers. Frankie is grateful that S-Snake has undone the control on him, even though she was a very unpleasant child earlier. Vegapunk finds it strange because he didn't program S-Snake to act like that. It turns out that Luffy thought the Seraphim in front of him was Boa Hancock, so he begged her to release his crewmates. This makes her quite confused and she obediently listens to him. Jimbei bursts out laughing, saying Snake is a perfect copy of Boa Hancock. She's always considered men to be trash, but Luffy is different. It's funny that the Seraphim modeled after her also possesses feelings for him. Vegapunk attributes this to the genetic factors in the cloning process. When Lilith is released by S-Snake, she lends Nami the bubble gun. Thanks to this, the Straw Hats navigator can capture the Seraphim all at once. In addition, Nami is the one who saved Sanji when he ran into trouble with Seraphim S-Shark. Luffy continues to thank the Seraphim, making her blush shyly. Meanwhile, Atlas realizes that the communication system is back up, but the border dome still can't be opened. It turns out that York used a password to disable everything. Of course, she'll never reveal what it is. This makes Lilith very frustrated. "You filthy traitor. You're really driving me crazy." Stussy estimates that the enemy has 100 warships and 30,000 troops. It seems like they're going all in. Vegapunk calls Nami over to see what the crew's next destination is. Based on the compass, the next island that the Straw Hats will set foot on may be Elbaf. Hearing this news, Luffy and Usopp gape in joy. They put their arms around each other and start singing because they've long dreamed of going to the Island of Giants to adventure and explore. At this time, Stussy notices that Lucci is still glaring at her, and she asks him to stop immediately. It seems Lucci is quite bitter about being bitten earlier. Then, Vegapunk draws up an escape plan. He will use the Vega Force 1 robot to carry the Sunny ship through the enemy fleet. Next, Frankie will use the Sunny's emergency retreat system, launching them all straight into the sky. The enemy won't be able to catch up if we fly a whole kilometer. For the time being, this plan is pretty good. However, first they need to disable the border dome. So the three smartest Vegapunk versions rush to use the computers to hack the password that York created. Then, the Doctor entrusts Vega Force 1 to Lilith. She runs outside with Luffy, Sanji, and Bonnie. Lilith is excited because it's the first time she's left the island. On the other hand, Luffy and Bonnie feel regret because the food here is very delicious. Bonnie has become much happier than she was at first, which surprises Luffy a bit. Not having to kill Vegapunk anymore makes Bonnie feel lighter than ever. Currently, the Navy has grasped the situation inside through Lucci's secret reports. They realize Luffy is only pretending to be in control, but is actually panicking. Saturn wants Kizaru to infiltrate the island using his light abilities. Although he's more than capable of doing that, the Admiral is a little hesitant to face his acquaintance. If he attacks now, Sentomaru will order the Pacifista and Sea Beasts to sink the warships. The losses will be very large. Saint Saturn clutches his head because things are quite difficult and hard to solve. On the other hand, Lucci has sent all the necessary information to Kizaru. The Navy has moved into battle positions. They will attack whenever Kizaru orders. The Vice Admirals begin deploying tactics for their subordinates, ensuring that the Navy will always be in an advantageous position. Meanwhile, Luffy is still busy playing with the clouds that resemble Skypiea. The group has also reached the Sunny ship and Vega Force 1. At this moment, Kizaru uses light beams to teleport himself inside Egghead. Sentomaru has noticed the appearance of his uncle, so he orders all the Pacifista to eliminate the enemy. Kizaru rushes towards his nephew and unleashes a powerful kick. The axe-wielding Sentomaru is quite confident in his defensive abilities, so he raises his hands to block the kick. This collision shakes the entire future island. Immediately, Luffy's face changes and he starts sweating profusely because he realizes that someone extremely strong has landed on the island. Right now, Sentomaru and Kizaru are exchanging blows in a fierce battle. The axe-wielding Sentomaru has proven his amazing defensive abilities against the powerful light kicks of Admiral Kizaru. The coast outside Egghead is currently extremely chaotic. Admiral Kizaru's infiltration of the island can be considered the opening shot. Following Sentomaru's orders, the Pacifista Mark III continuously fire laser beams at the Navy, and they retaliate fiercely. The clash has caused considerable damage to both sides. To gain the upper hand, the 5 Vice Admirals charge forward simultaneously. Their goal is to defeat the Pacifista and rescue the agents imprisoned inside the island. At this time, the weaponized beasts also begin to act by tearing apart the warships. They have caused countless Navy warships to be submerged in the sea. Seeing this scene, a Vice Admiral unleashes a super powerful punch at the Sea Beast. The other Vice Admirals are not willing to leave the Pacifista alone, so they rush to counterattack. Even so, they are not lenient at all. Inside the laboratory, the Straw Hat crew members are monitoring the battle through the Den Den Mushi screen. The situation is extremely difficult. Usopp did not expect it to happen so soon. However, Sentomaru is commanding a powerful Pacifista fleet. It is impossible for the island's defense system to be breached. He is almost the person with the highest authority to control the Pacifista Mark III. Second only to the Doctor and the Gorosei. The Straw Hats are surprised that Kizaru is here. It seems that this time they really have to face an admiral. The dark memories of Sabaody 2 years ago make Brook a bit obsessed. Vegapunk feels guilty for putting Sentomaru in the current situation. This is really too cruel. If he chooses to run away, I will completely understand. However, Sentomaru did not do that. He decided to prevent his golden monkey uncle from invading. As a result, he was kicked by the light and flew a considerable distance. Kizaru constantly asks Sentomaru to surrender because he cannot fight him. Not stopping there, Kizaru continued to use increasingly domineering moves, firing a series of deadly lasers at his foolish nephew. Seeing this, Sentomaru had no choice but to dodge. He also affirmed that he would not surrender because he had promised Luffy. Sentomaru ran to his axe, then planned to counterattack Kizaru with it. The Admiral could not believe that his nephew was now colluding with pirates. Sentomaru jumped into the air, avoiding all damage, then swung his axe to attack Kizaru. He owes old man Vegapunk a life, so he will risk everything to keep him safe. Sentomaru's axe cut the Golden Admiral in half, but that's not a problem because his Logia ability allows him to regenerate his body. The two reminisce about the beautiful memories of the past when they first met. At that time, the Navy received a report that there were wild bears attacking a village on an island. Vegapunk and Kizaru decided to go see. Both were extremely surprised to see a boy had dealt with the wild bears. It was Sentomaru as a child. Due to his violent behavior, he was chased away by the villagers. After that, Sentomaru wanted to work for Vegapunk as long as he was paid. The doctor was quite interested in Sentomaru, and quickly asked him what he needed the money for. Sentomaru replied that he would use it to buy rice balls with a craving expression. This made Kizaru laugh. The Admiral thought Sentomaru was extremely cute back then, so he loved him very much. After that, Vegapunk hired Sentomaru as his personal bodyguard, making him extremely happy. As time passed, Sentomaru continuously sought Kizaru, asking him to teach him how to be a bodyguard. Kizaru gave him detailed instructions, but unexpectedly now the two teacher and student had to face each other like this. Returning to the present, Sentomaru punched his uncle in the face. The Admiral admits that his defense is truly second to none. However, Kizaru had no choice but to fire a laser to end this unwanted battle. That move destroyed a vast area. Of course, Sentomaru was hit completely and was officially defeated. Kizaru was holding the authority chip, meaning he can order the pacifista now that Sentomaru has fallen. Immediately, the Monkey Admiral ordered the robots to change their original plan, which was to protect the warships and destroy the sea beasts. And so the battle outside the island also ended when there was no longer any defensive layer. Saint Saturn feels it is a waste to have to do this. He also asked his subordinates to continuously update the casualty situation. On the other hand, the Straw Hats are in an uproar because Sentomaru was defeated so quickly. Vegapunk cries and mourns for the bodyguard. However, the thing to do now is to encrypt the defense system, so the doctor had to put his sadness aside. We must not waste the time that Sentomaru asked them to give us. York laughs sarcastically. You can try. Don't forget I'm one of the Vegapunks too. Ah. This is truly nasty and not cute at all, Vegapunk said. Vegapunk said that Kizaru is the person of light, so he can pass through the laser barrier at any time. This makes Usopp extremely shocked and scared. That old man almost wiped out our whole crew years ago. Kizaru looks towards the laboratory. The Admiral also feels nostalgic for the memories between himself and the Straw Hat crew. Immediately afterwards, he transforms himself into light and jumps up high. Vegapunk doesn't want to engage with him, so once the barrier is lowered, they must retreat immediately. On this side, Luffy's group is inside Vega Force 1, which is controlled by Lilith. They are carrying the Sunny to the back of the island so they can escape as originally planned. But in this situation, Luffy and Bonnie are still eating and drinking as if nothing is happening. Then, Lilith discovered that someone had passed through the border dome. The three things that must not be touched are the energy facility, York, and Punk Records. Wouldn't it be better if we didn't have to touch old friends? Eliminating Vegapunk is the top priority in this mission. Kizaru's entry into the border dome makes Usopp even more worried, constantly calling on Luffy to return before it's too late. The situation is very difficult. If Luffy hasn't brought the ship back to the right position, it will be useless to cancel the barrier. The enemy will rush into Egghead immediately. Suddenly, Stussy notices something unusual here. It turns out, traitor Lucci plans to betray them and assassinate Vegapunk. Without thinking much, she used her body to shield the doctor. As a result, Stussy was stabbed, spitting blood and falling to the ground. This is something that could not be foreseen. Who knew that the treacherous guy would play such a cowardly trick? Seeing the spy intending to betray them, Sanji grabbed the bubble gun from Nami's hand and controlled Kaku. Kaku is lying bedridden like this, so you won't be able to do anything else, remember. On the other hand, Zoro has drawn his sword to slash Lucci. However, he quickly blocked that lightning attack, so you had to wait for an opportunity to dare to say something? Lucci affirmed that once Kizaru has arrived, he and the old man will definitely deal with the Straw Hat group. Helpless, Zoro had to push the treacherous guy out of the laboratory so he could fight more comfortably. It seems like you're underestimating my crew. At this time, Kizaru has closely chased Vega Force 1. Frankie doesn't know how to deal with the Light Admiral. Turning around, he no longer saw Luffy anywhere. It turned out he had secretly gone outside to meet Kizaru. "Hello, long time no see." Luffy rushed forward to greet Kizaru with a powerful kick. Seeing this, the Admiral raised his hands to resist. "You're still as cheeky as ever, Straw Hat?" Luffy frankly replied, "We're 100 times stronger than we were 2 years ago, Kizaru. You better prepare your coffin." Meanwhile, at the Holy Land Mariewa, former warlord Kuma has climbed to the top and is causing chaos in the Holy Land. The celestial dragons fearfully order their subordinates to restrain Kuma. Although tied up by chains, Kuma still walks steadily forward despite the powerlessness of the soldiers. Clearly he is trying to advance to a certain place, but not this Holy Land. Immediately afterwards, Kuma uses his strongest technique to blow away those obstructing his path. At this time, a familiar figure stepped forward to stop Kuma's attack. It is none other than Fleet Admiral Akainu. He asks Kuma what he came here to do. First there was the Revolutionary Army's raid and now there's Kuma. This is becoming a historically destructive event. The celestial dragons trample on the soldiers and speak to Akainu. This is the first time this has happened. If the food stores are destroyed, what will we put in our mouths? Another celestial dragon complains about being injured by Kuma, and orders Akainu to immediately deal with the former warlord. The Fleet Admiral says a few words before finishing Kuma off. "If we can't control you, there's no reason for a dangerous person like you to be free. If the mind is gone, it's no different from being dead." With that, Akainu unleashes a magma fist, blowing off half of Kuma's face. He is quite surprised when blood gushes out of Kuma's body. Suddenly, Kuma tries to run away from Akainu. His left leg is also melted by magma. Thanks to the power of his devil fruit, the former warlord teleports himself somewhere. Akainu recalls the time 2 years ago when he captured Kuma's daughter, Bonnie. Red Dog told her that no matter what she did, she could not get Kuma to return, because he had voluntarily become a fighting weapon. Bonnie doesn't believe this. "There's no way my father would do that willingly." Akainu finds it incomprehensible that even though Kuma has clearly lost his mind, he is still able to act on his own. Back at the Egghead battlefield. At this time, the Navy is gaining the upper hand after taking control of the Pacifista Mark III. Thanks to it, the weaponized sea beasts are destroyed one by one and sink to the bottom of the sea. Currently, the Navy is in the process of occupying the island. At this time, Admiral Kizaru is fighting fiercely with Luffy in snakeman form. He admits that Luffy is definitely the one who defeated Kaido. "You are truly formidable. But why would a pirate decide to protect Dr. Vegapunk, who works for the world government?" Luffy also asks Kizaru, "Why do you want to assassinate the old man?" Luffy's attack is quite intense, so Kizaru can only use his hands to defend. Immediately afterwards, Admiral Kizaru transforms into light and flies high into the sky to the point where his body can no longer be seen. This makes Luffy wonder what the Admiral is planning to do. It turns out, he is gaining momentum to prepare to unleash a very powerful attack. Kizaru tells Luffy that he doesn't want to kill Vegapunk because the two have known each other for a very long time. Therefore, he hopes Luffy will not interfere with this mission. Next, Kizaru launches himself back to the island, confirming that speed is power. He responds to Luffy with his powerful light kick, sending him flying towards Vega Force 1. Kizaru recalls that Vegapunk once considered Vega Force 1 to be a giant robot in a dream. Because he couldn't stop himself, Luffy crashed into the robot, causing it to break in half. Not only that, he was also blown away to the border dome, creating a huge explosion. Vega Force 1 is damaged, so Franky and Bonnie are thrown outside. Luckily, the ground is made of clouds, so the sunny ship is not badly damaged. Lilith frantically asks Franky and Bonnie to get away from it quickly. Immediately, Vega Force 1 explodes into pieces before the trio's powerlessness. They feel regret for such a modern machine, and are also very angry at Kizaru's actions. Franky turns to curse the Golden Monkey Admiral. He is surprised that Bonnie has grown up so much. "Do you have a grudge against Vegapunk?" "We are ordered to assassinate him." Bonnie responds that her goal has changed, using weapons to attack Kizaru. However, she cannot touch the Person of Light because his movements are very fast. Kizaru counters with a kick, sending Bonnie flying into the border dome just like Luffy. Franky is angered by Kizaru's actions, and quickly raises his hand to fire a laser. But he suddenly disappeared. Lilith realizes that main body may be in danger, so she is very worried. So the Iron Man tries to contact the command room to report the current situation. Inside, Dr. Vegapunk has encrypted the password that York created. This makes her extremely dissatisfied. Vegapunk tells Franky that the barrier can now be turned off. Have they brought Vega Force 1 and the Sunny to the back of the island yet? Unexpectedly, Kizaru appeared from behind, declaring Vegapunk's escape plan is dead. The presence of the Admiral makes everyone startled. Kizaru says that this is a difficult mission, so he doesn't want to prolong it for too long. Electrocuted by the electricity of the border dome, Luffy transforms into Nika and laughs like a fool. He continues to bounce on the clouds with the drumbeat of freedom. Before Kizaru can understand what's going on, a giant hand suddenly appears and grabs him. Seeing this crazy scene, the eyes of everyone around them bulge out simultaneously. Kizaru is a little surprised by Luffy's new form, so it's not just a rumor. Kizaru kicking Luffy into the border dome makes Luffy very annoyed, so he comes back to retaliate. The appearance of the sun god Nika suddenly causes the giant ancient robot to reactivate. Luffy was extremely excited to have subdued the yellow monkey, Kizaru. A moment later, his giant foot almost crushed his own crewmates. Although on the defensive, Kizaru's expression didn't change in the slightest. Knowing he was in trouble, the Admiral just hoped Luffy would go easy on him. "No way, you old geezer." After that, Luffy dragged Kizaru outside and began spinning him around like a whirligig, toying with his opponent to his heart's content. Then, with great force, he flung Kizaru out of the Vegapunk lab. Usopp, Chopper, and Atlas were ecstatic at Luffy's display. Seeing their captain's new form, Brook looked truly joyful and happy. As usual, after playing with his prey, Warrior Nika continued to bounce around with his hearty laughter. Seeing this, the others quickly retreated before Admiral Kizaru returned. They needed to be careful taking Robin and Stussy with them. Therefore, Edison went to get a stretcher to carry the two of them. At this point, Atlas decided to go down to the lower level to regain control of the Pacifista. If she didn't, even if the Frontier Dome opened, everything would be fried by the Mark III's lasers. No one has higher control authority than the Vegapunks, just controlling the Pacifista is all it takes to win. On the other hand, through the monitor, Dr. Vegapunk saw Bonnie lost and trapped below. Therefore, he also wanted to go down to rescue her. However, Usopp strongly opposed this idea because Vegapunk was the primary target, and a slip-up could cost him his life. The doctor didn't care about himself, and hurriedly contacted Frankie, asking him to help Bonnie. It turned out she was still alive after being kicked into the shield by Admiral Kizaru. Vegapunk scolded the Iron Man for letting the enemy get to Bonnie so easily. Frankie felt very guilty and would run to her side right away. Currently, Sanji and Jinbei were on the second floor of Building A, packing their luggage at Dr. Vegapunk's request. They would go out the back exit and meet everyone there. On the other hand, after hearing that Bonnie had been kicked away by Kizaru, Sanji was enraged to the point of bursting into flames. This is unforgivable. For that reason, Sanji also wanted to run to rescue the beautiful pink-haired girl. Vegapunk's final decision was still to bravely venture outside. He handed control back to Edison, and then left with Atlas. Frankie still felt very guilty. If I had been faster, maybe Bonnie wouldn't have gotten into trouble. Seeing this, Lilith encouraged the Iron Man, "Worrying won't do any good, instead, you should act quickly. Leave everything here to me." Regaining his confidence, the Straw Hat shipwright rushed to support his ally. Lilith still couldn't believe that Luffy could throw Admiral Kizaru so far. Frankie showed his pride in his captain. Of course, he will never lose. Down in the factory, the Marines were frantically searching for Bonnie. The girl was hiding somewhere, ready to fight with her iron staff. Next, Bonnie transformed into a child and suddenly jumped out, ambushing them one by one. In her child form, her movements were extremely agile. This much of the Marines were no match for her. Before long, they had been defeated by the Supernova's ability. Some were manipulated into children, others were aged into 80-year-old men with no strength left to hold weapons. When too many troops had been defeated, the Marines began to be more wary of Bonnie. Having shaken off the enemy, Bonnie hastily hid, exhausted and slightly scratched. The Marines had also discovered Sentomaru, who was scorched black. Earlier, when kicked into the Frontier Dome by Kizaru and falling freely below, Sentomaru was the one who caught Bonnie. In a state of exhaustion, he tried to convince Bonnie to leave, and then officially collapsed. Now Bonnie didn't know whether she should continue running until it was all over. Back in the control room, Zoro was searching for his enemy, Rob Lucci. He had hidden in the bushes, transformed into his awakened form, and was secretly observing his prey, the Straw Hat Swordsman. Immediately afterwards, Lucci jumped out from behind, ambushing Zoro. And then the two of them plunged into an earth-shattering duel, delivering fatal blows without holding back. Luffy was quite surprised to see Zoro fighting the vengeful beast. The two of them were currently quite evenly matched. Zoro said that Luffy should just focus on Kizaru, he would take care of this traitor. Rob Lucci clawed back and forth but didn't cause a scratch on Zoro. Zoro believed that Lucci's current level was far from good enough to be a match for his captain. He felt the same way, but defeating the second-in-command of a Yonko was worth it. On the other hand, Kizaru had been thrown out of the range of the future island, but he was very calm. When he was about to fall into the sea, Kizaru immediately propelled himself into the air. Next, he fired lasers at Luffy, his whole body also turned into light and followed them. Luffy felt a little dazzled when he saw the spots of light flying towards him. Unexpectedly, those spots of light suddenly turned into a series of Kizaru clones, causing Luffy's eyes to pop out in shock. Next, the clones used light to create a light sword and then slashed at Luffy in unison. Luffy tried to avoid the lightning-fast attack, but was still grazed on the cheek by the blade, quite painful. Luffy immediately retaliated with a kick, defeating some of the light clones. However, that was still not enough. With no other option, Luffy once again turned into a giant, using his giant hand to grab the real body of his opponent. Kizaru easily dodged and then ran leisurely on Luffy's arm. Afterwards, Luffy puffed out his mouth and blew a strong breath to see if it would work. However, Kizaru's clones were too persistent. No matter what he did, it was useless. Luffy didn't know which was the real body, so he had no choice but to run high into the air. The clones immediately chased after him and fell into his trap. Just waiting for this, Luffy quickly used the Gum Gum Whip technique to defeat all the clones in one go. Just when he thought he had dealt with the main body, unexpectedly, Luffy was the one who fell into the trap. It turned out that Kizaru had sneaked into the command room and controlled Usopp from who knows when. Luffy's eyes widened in surprise at being tricked by his opponent. Luckily, Vegapunk was no longer there. Brook threatened the Admiral, but he didn't seem to care, tightening his grip on Usopp's talkative mouth more and more. At this moment, the Doctor and Atlas were speeding down below in the Vegatank 08. Sanji was also clinging to the vehicle to go with them. Sanji didn't understand why Vegapunk's attitude had suddenly changed. The Doctor wouldn't let the Marines lay a finger on Bonnie and would definitely not let her die. Luffy panicked when the old man Vegapunk stuck his face out. Hurry up and go inside, it's a death sentence out there. Spotting the target, Kizaru threw Usopp to the ground, and then began aiming a laser at the Doctor. Atlas was very worried about being targeted, but Vegapunk remained determined not to change direction. Seeing this, Luffy rushed out and used his wide mouth to catch the deadly laser, temporarily saving Vegapunk's life. Seeing this scene, Atlas and Sanji's eyes widened in surprise. The deadly laser that Luffy swallowed made him burn all over, screaming in pain and radiating light everywhere. At this moment, Frankie was also clinging to the specialized vehicle. The guy told Lilith to use the Steel General to take the Sunny away. Jumping out of the giant egg, Vegapunk signaled Edison to open a part of the Frontier Dome. The soldiers below quickly spotted the presence of Dr. Vegapunk and immediately pointed their guns into the air, while ordering the pacifista to target him. Seeing that the Master had approached the Mark III group, Edison immediately turned on the Frontier Dome barrier. As soon as she got to the bottom, Atlas shouted loudly, requesting the pacifista to comply with the new order, which is to wipe out all the Marines present on this island. The Marines were utterly shocked when Atlas's order was given. Immediately afterwards, the pacifista turned around and aimed their lasers at the Marines. Whether the tide can be turned or not is still a big question mark. Right after Atlas ordered the pacifistas to change their target to the Navy, chaos erupted amongst the Marines on the island of the future. Since Vegapunk held the highest authority over the Mark III models, they immediately obeyed the command, turning 180 degrees to attack the Marine forces. Their attacks were incredibly fierce and powerful, continuing to shake the island to its core. Faced with this situation, the Navy had no choice but to retreat away from the robot army, hiding in wait for an opportunity to retaliate. Then, the vehicle Vegapunk was driving descended lower. Everyone was frantically searching for Bonnie. Frankie was worried as the Doctor drove towards the central area, as they would all fall if they weren't careful. Vegapunk explained that 1/5 of the Vegatank 08's tires were made of sea stone, making it difficult to fall. Meanwhile, Sanji was diligently searching for the supernova within his sights. Soon after, Sanji immediately found Bonnie with his love radar. Spotting Frankie doubting his senses, Sanji became very annoyed. Has my radar for the ladies ever been wrong? Conversely, even as a scientist, Vegapunk still trusted the Straw Hat Cook's judgment. Too worried about Bonnie, and because the vehicle was moving too slowly, Sanji abandoned Frankie and quickly jumped down. Bonnie was quite happy to learn that the pacifista had switched sides. At that moment, the enemy spotted her location. A vice admiral suddenly leapt forward and attacked Bonnie with their weapon. Bonnie skillfully dodged and stepped back. She then transferred her abilities into the gun in her hand, continuing the strenuous battle. When the Marine soldiers rushed forward, Bonnie used the technique near-death experience on them. Anyone hit by the bullets experienced hallucinations and turned into a skeleton. Terrified, they all rolled over unconscious. Taking advantage of the Marines' utter confusion, Bonnie continued to flee. Suddenly, a pacifista appeared and blocked Bonnie's path. This greatly surprised her. Aren't the pacifista being controlled by Dr. Vegapunk? It turned out a decrepit old female vice admiral was controlling the Mark III using the power of a devil fruit. Her name was Bluegrass, and her devil fruit power allowed her to ride anything while also becoming an incredible driver. To nullify Bonnie's age-altering abilities on the Marine soldiers, Bluegrass had to kill her immediately. Then, she ordered the pacifista to fire lasers and attack Bonnie. Facing a machine bearing the likeness of her father, Bonnie stood motionless without any resistance. Just as the deadly laser was fired, Sanji appeared in time and saved the supernova from danger. Sanji knew Bonnie was suffering, but she needed to accept this reality. Abruptly, the Vice Admiral transformed into a hybrid beast and continued to leap forward to attack Sanji and Bonnie. Realizing this, the Straw Hat Cook quickly grabbed Bonnie and ran away swiftly. At that moment, Vegapunk arrived to support them. I now control the pacifista, so there is no need to worry. With their support, Bonnie successfully escaped the helpless duo of Vice Admirals. Inside the command room, Kaku was nonchalantly sleeping, and Robin was lying on a special stretcher, waiting for her companions to take her to safety. Stussy awoke after being ambushed by Lucci. She decided not to go with the Straw Hats because she still had something she needed to do. Edison immediately understood and quickly left the command room, trusting her decision. The Straw Hat group quickly retreated. On a different front, Zoro was still fighting Lucci. The stubborn foe used every possible trick to defeat the Straw Hat swordsman. But to no avail, back to the fight between Luffy and Gear 5 and Admiral Kizaru, the two were fighting fiercely in the air. Kizaru didn't want to continue fighting Luffy because doing so would prevent him from completing the mission assigned to him by his superiors. Luffy grinned confidently because his mission was to keep the old Admiral busy. Seizing an opportunity when Luffy was distracted, Kizaru quickly sped off to search for Dr. Vegapunk. Seeing this, Luffy immediately chased after him, determined not to let him accomplish his dark intentions. Inside the warship, Saint Saturn was no longer calmly drinking, but officially stood up. It seemed he was itching to get his hands dirty and decided to join the battle. Next, outside the coast, a great tremor occurred, and a dark cloud appeared, covering the sky above the island. This frightened Vice Admiral Doberman, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. Something very dangerous is beginning to manifest on the island of the future. Kizaru, Luffy, Jinbe, Chopper, Zoro, and Lucci were immediately drawn to the wicked haki emanating from the creature. Just what is this monster? The Vice Admirals also easily recognized this and knew who was releasing the intense haki across the island. Next, the mysterious creature suddenly ordered the pacifista to immediately cease their attacks. Strangely, the Mark III models immediately obeyed, no longer firing lasers at the Marine soldiers. Not only that, but the pacifista also stopped protecting Vegapunk's group, no matter how many orders were given. This greatly surprised the doctor. Clearly, I had the highest authority on the island. Could it be that one of the Gorosei is here? At that moment, a large explosion occurred below, followed by a magic circle with a 5-pointed star appearing in front of the Marine soldiers on the island. Black lightning bolts spread from the magic circle everywhere, causing the island of the future to shake violently. Realizing the situation was rapidly deteriorating, Vegapunk immediately stepped on the gas, speeding the specialized vehicle back to the command room as quickly as possible. On the other hand, an announcement was broadcast throughout the island of the future, that one of the Gorosei, St. J. Garcia Saturn, had arrived. Low-ranking officers were strictly forbidden from seeing his face. Everyone was shocked that one of the most powerful figures in the world, one of the Gorosei, was participating in this battle. There was no better choice than to run away quickly. At that moment, Sanji noticed something gradually appearing from the magic circle. Some of the Marine soldiers, curious about the creature in front of them, forgot the new orders and looked up. As expected, they were immediately met with death after the evil glare of Saint Saturn. Finally, St. J. Garcia Saturn. One of the 5 Gorosei holding the highest power in the world government, bearing the role of god of science and defense, revealed himself in his awakened mythical Zoan form. Currently, he looked like a giant cow spider accompanied by a dark cloud of darkness surrounding his body. It had been a long time since Saint Saturn had returned and set foot on land. On this side, Bonnie's group was too busy wondering about the strange cow-headed spider monster and forgot to be wary. Above, Admiral Kizaru was waiting for them, firing a light beam that severed the cloud path. For that reason, the specialized vehicle could no longer take the Vegapunk group back to the command room, and fell straight down below. The Admiral continued his attempt to fire a laser to finish them off and complete the mission assigned by his superiors. However, it wouldn't be that easy. Luffy Gear 5 had arrived in time, ready to save Vegapunk and his companions. He swelled up his muscles, demanding Kizaru stop immediately. The Admiral thought that state of his had reached its limit, but he was able to maintain it. On the other hand, Frankie hoped that his captain could do something to turn the tide. Seeing the opponent fire lasers to attack him, Luffy tried to avoid them, ending up spinning around and around like a top. Finally, the rubber man released a super powerful punch covered in Conqueror's Haki, named White Star Gun, which caved in the Light Admiral's head. After this devastating attack, Gear 5 officially wore off, Luffy gradually exhausted, turning into a withered old man and slowly falling. Saint Saturn had watched the White Warrior Nika from beginning to end with a face full of anger. The recent clash had blown Kizaru into a building, while Luffy had fallen straight down and collapsed. Sanji's group encountered a similar situation and fell out of the super vehicle. Right in front of them was Saint Saturn waiting. Frankie ran to protect Vegapunk, while Sanji picked up Bonnie and went to assist Atlas. Vegapunk was horrified to see Saint Saturn in his giant spider form. He thought Vegapunk had been executed long ago. Who knew he had lived this long? Seeing the culprit right in front of her, Bonnie was furious. She jumped out of Sanji's arms, grabbed a sword and rushed forward. Through the paw bubble containing memories, Bonnie knew that Saturn was the one who ordered the erasure of all memories of her father, former Shichibukai Bartholomew Kuma. Anger had engulfed Bonnie. For that reason, the female supernova did not hesitate to stab the sword straight into the chest of the evil spider. Die, you decrepit old bastard! At this moment, Navy soldiers were scrambling to flee at the announcement of the arrival of one of the 5 elders, Saint Saturn. Only rear admirals and colonels were permitted to remain in the central area, the rest were ordered to retreat immediately. Until now, they had only seen Saturn in ordinary portraits. When a celestial dragon was in trouble, an admiral would be summoned, but Saturn held a position even higher than that of a celestial dragon. Currently, he remained calm after being stabbed by Bonnie. The surrounding Marines were horrified by the girl's actions, unable to believe that one of the 5 elders, the supreme leaders of the world government, had been attacked by someone as insignificant as Bonnie. They were ready to open fire and eliminate the brat. Vegapunk was equally shocked to see Bonnie so angry, feeling that the Marines were too noisy. Saturn ordered them to shut their mouths. He could have easily dodged Bonnie's stab, but had no intention of doing so. Next, Saturn glared, injuring Bonnie and sending her flying away from the sword. He then gripped the girl tightly with his large hand as punishment for her actions. Sanji tried to rush in to protect Bonnie but was hit by a similar attack. Saturn withdrew the sword from himself, yet the wounds suddenly disappeared. This greatly surprised Frankie. Meanwhile, the damage Saturn inflicted on Sanji caused him to collapse in pain. Seeing this, the Navy rushed forward to capture Vegapunk. Saturn snapped, "Fools, what are you rushing for? With me here, how could they possibly escape?" Not only that, but Saturn also criticized Kizaru for acting slower than usual. The admiral knew his offense and dared not offer any excuse. What's more, he was unable to move for a period of time. Saturn understood the reason. It must have been due to Nika's powerful punch from earlier. Then I'll eliminate this threat right here. Saturn's claws nearly pierced Luffy's exhausted stomach, but Frankie managed to save his captain in the nick of time. "How lucky for you," Frankie said, pulling Luffy towards him, gleefully joking that Luffy was being hunted by the highest powers in the world. Luffy and Bonnie's presence on this island was beyond Saturn's expectations. However, the Navy had surrounded the entire island, and it was on the verge of destruction. If the two could escape through a twist of fate, Saturn decided he was interested in seeing what happened. As for Vegapunk, Saturn expressed regret that the scientist had decided to betray the government. In the name of the government, Saturn thanked Vegapunk for his great contributions to the military. "Now, tell me who is to die first. I will carry out the execution in order, with the most painful punishment. That way, you will regret daring to oppose the government." Saturn continued to crush Bonnie's body, causing her to scream in pain. Seeing this, Sanji was extremely worried, but he was currently unable to move. Vegapunk, Atlas, and Frankie were also in a similar state. Some mysterious power was holding them all in place. If it wasn't science, it must be a devil fruit power. Bonnie reaffirmed that Saturn was the one who killed her father. He admitted it and didn't forget to hurl insults at Kuma. He was born a slave, the last remnant of a people carrying the grave sin of being wiped out called the Buccaneers. Bonnie started to recall the words her father used to tell her when she was a child. He had always wanted to become a hero, someone who would bring freedom to those who were being oppressed, just like the warrior of liberation. The sun god Nika. He admired the sun god, who would leap into battle with a wide grin on his face, accompanied by the drums of liberation. At this moment, Saturn ordered the entire army to aim at Bonnie's head. Sanji and Vegapunk were terrified and desperately asked him to stop, that she was just a child. Just then, Bonnie asked if Nika would bring her freedom. Kuma had replied, "Of course," and so, a flashback began to the life of the former Shichibukai. 47 years ago, in the Sorbet Kingdom, Kuma was born, arriving into the world as quite a large baby. Afterward, Kuma's father, Clap, requested that the doctor keep the secret of his son's bloodline a secret. One would think that this child would have a happy life, but reality was much more cruel. Inside the hospital were ears and eyes of the government, so Kuma's buccaneer bloodline was quickly exposed. Immediately, the doctor who had helped Kuma's family was executed, and his family was taken to the Holy Land of Mary Geos to be made slaves. Clap cried, pleaded, and begged the celestial dragons to spare his wife and children, but they didn't listen. Instead, they beat him mercilessly. Kuma's family of 3 was then separated. Though still very young, Kuma had to carry tributes much larger than his body every day. If he was even slightly careless, he would be tortured and tormented by the celestial dragons with whips. They even threatened that if Kuma cried, they would immediately kill him. When he met his father again, Kuma only dared to lie, saying that he was doing very well and that his master was treating him nicely. However, unable to endure this hell, Kuma's mother passed away, but that also meant that she had gone to heaven, a much better place. This made Kuma extremely sad, and he burst into tears in helplessness. He remembered the words his mother had told him, "Be strong. Kuma, you have to endure and keep living, okay? Someday, a warrior of liberation will come and save you." Kuma then asked his father, "Who is the sun god Nika?" "He is the name of a mythical warrior passed down in the Buccaneer tribe. He will lead everyone to a free ocean overflowing with sunshine." Nika is always smiling, walking to the beat, and making those around him feel happier. Clap told the story while dancing Nika's dance for his son, but because Clap was too noisy, a celestial dragon shot and killed him. 9 years later, on an island in the West Blue, the celestial dragons would descend to the surface every 3 years and hold a population elimination tournament. This time, it was being held in a kingdom not allied with the government, located on an island called God Valley. The celestial dragons believed that the name was blasphemous to them. Above all else, God Valley was rich in natural resources, so, from now on, the kingdom would forcibly become the property of the government, and this place would become the site of an annual native hunting tournament. The king of God Valley immediately opposed this decision, saying, "How can he allow his people to be killed by the games of lunatics like the celestial dragons?" However, this man was murdered shortly after. The leading candidate for the championship was Holy Knight Figureland Garling. Though possessing an incredibly handsome appearance, in truth he was a cruel and tyrannical individual who viewed human lives as mere weeds. Despite this, the female celestial dragons were head over heels for Garling. His murder of God Valley's king resulted in Garling being penalized 10,000 points to his initial total. He didn't care, as that would keep the competition more heated between others. This year, in addition to the native population, slaves were also forced to become prey in the tournament, and Kuma was one of these unfortunate souls. Seizing this opportunity, he decided to escape. Saturn immediately ordered the other slaves to find the Buccaneer child at all costs. Consequently, Kuma was quickly apprehended once more. This time he was subjected to relentless beatings and torture, leaving him broken in body and spirit. At that moment, 2 other slaves came to Kuma's rescue. To his surprise, they were revealed to be none other than Ivankov, Kuma's future comrade, and Ginny, his sister. Ivankov was quite interested in Kuma's Buccaneer heritage, as it was rumored that the Buccaneer race possessed the blood of giants. In contrast to the other slaves, Ivankov always wore a smile on his face. He declared, "I'm definitely going to keep on living," and asked those around him if they wanted to follow his lead. The hunting tournament officially commenced. According to the rules, the native population and the slaves were to be treated as rabbits. There were 150 rare rabbits and 13 super rare ones, worth 10,000 points each. Whoever won the tournament would receive a magnificent treasure chest as their reward. After the starting gun fired, the residents of God Valley and the slaves frantically tried to escape. Meanwhile, the celestial dragons and holy knights were thoroughly enjoying satisfying their bloodlust. Garling was extremely confident in his abilities and began provoking the other competitors. In this game, the organizers would give the rabbits 1 hour to freely find a hiding spot. However, the celestial dragons, being too impatient, immediately opened fire on them. The residents of God Valley and the slaves fled in fear, hoping it was all just a dream. They were extremely dissatisfied, unable to understand why those people were toying with the lives of their fellow humans. At the same time, the Navy received information that the Rocks pirates were going to land on God Valley, so they immediately strengthened their defenses and summoned Vice Admiral Garp to return and provide assistance. However, Garp didn't care what happened to the celestial dragons, and was leisurely relaxing at a resort. He had warned them in the past not to be foolish enough to provoke Hakinosu, or they would certainly be bitten back by the pirates. To change Garp's mind, Sengoku told him that Roger was also preparing to take action. Immediately, Garp's expression changed, and he accepted the summons from his superiors. As predicted, the Rocks pirates had set sail for God Valley. Other pirate crews, seeing this, also wanted to join in on this battle that had the potential to shake the entire world. Back on God Valley, an hour had passed, and the hunt officially began. The slaves had never witnessed so many ships surrounding the island. This meant that the celestial dragons would trap them in this living hell, preventing anyone from escaping. And then, one day, this massacre would gradually fade into oblivion and disappear from the flow of history. At this moment, Ivankov began to rally the remaining slaves, proclaiming, "The celestial dragons have chosen God Valley as a place of slaughter because they want to seize the resources here. 10,000 commoners forced to be rabbits in this hunting game, none of them will survive 3 weeks. So where is justice and fairness?" Some slaves still placed their faith in the celestial dragons, because they had promised that anyone who survived 3 weeks would be set free. Hearing this, Ivankov became enraged. "Are you crazy for believing that promise? In all the hunting games before this, not a single person has survived. They're just giving you a false hope. What's the fun in killing someone who's already given up?" The celestial dragons want the slaves to still have hope and to keep running so they can have a really exciting hunt. We'll never be able to win in their filthy game. So, what we need to do now is find a way to escape from here. Meanwhile, Holy Knight figure Garling was displaying his overwhelming power by hunting down the rare rabbits worth 10,000 points. The entire process of slaughtering civilians and slaves was being broadcast live to the Holy Land of Mary Geos. The female celestial dragons continued to scream excitedly at Holy Garling's performance. At this moment, a fishman slave bit through Ivankov's shackles with his sharp teeth. Ginny, for her part, said that the prizes of this deadly tournament were the key to the slaves' escape. The wooden chests contained 2 incredibly powerful devil fruits. The first was the Azure Dragon Fruit, with the power to transform oneself into an Eastern dragon. The second was the Nikyu Nikyu no Mi, which allowed its user to repel themselves and others to a distant island. If they could just steal it, everyone could escape without anyone knowing. The problem was that those prize chests were being kept in the center of the island and were heavily guarded. However, Ginny had come up with a solution. She was originally a master thief, as well as a talented eavesdropper. 2 weeks prior, it was Ginny who had leaked the information about this tournament to the outside world. Surely someone had taken notice of it. After all, a plan like this needed a lot of bait scattered all over the place. This was how the Rock's pirates and Roger knew where to come. While everyone else was fearful and anxious, Kuma decided that he would go and steal the devil fruits, together with Ivankov. He was confident that, with his large body, his chances of survival would be higher than everyone else's. This further impressed Ivankov and Ginny. "Well said, Kuma. I definitely won't let anyone die. Let's escape from God Valley together." Soon after, the Rock's pirates arrived. Destruction followed them everywhere they went. No matter how much the Navy resisted, they couldn't stop the pirates' advance. They were very surprised by the arrival of the notorious pirates. What, after all, was their goal in coming here? The members present on the ship were some of the most notorious pirates in the Rock's crew: Whitebeard, Shiki, Big Mom, Kaido, and Gloriosa. Whitebeard was annoyed by Rock's impulsive actions, charging ahead like a madman from the very start. Moreover, Whitebeard wasn't a subordinate of Rock's, yet he dared to issue orders as if he were the leader of them all. Stussy was clinging to the man of her life. Seeing this, Gloriosa became extremely annoyed and cursed her out. The goal of this pirate crew, aside from hunting down rare devil fruits, was to seize another treasure. Whitebeard thought that Rox was a fool for forgetting the group's initial objective. First, they had to confirm if it was even here. However, the other members became restless. Shiki and Big Mom wanted to seize it for themselves and run off, not wanting to share with anyone. Learning that Roger had also made a move, Kaido became enraged, because Roger was the one he wanted to defeat the most. "This will be our decisive battle. Everything will be settled in this place." Afterward, the Rock's pirates officially landed on God Valley. Seeing the danger, the Celestial Dragons began to curse the Navy for being useless, unable to stop even a few pirates. It wasn't just Rock's, many other pirate crews arrived soon after, including Roger's crew, with incredibly powerful members like Dark King Rayleigh and Scopper Gaban. The Navy couldn't understand why this was happening. It was obvious that the hunting tournament at God Valley was supposed to be top-secret information. Roger was extremely excited to be participating in a battle of this scale. He had been waiting for this for a very long time. However, his crew members hoped that their captain wouldn't hog all the spotlight. The sudden appearance of the notorious pirate crews forced an immediate halt to the hunting tournament. The Holy Knights promptly ordered the Navy to fall back and allow them to take the front lines. Garling scoffed at the Navy, stating they were utterly useless, having blockaded the entire island and yet being unable to provide any actual assistance. The slaves were completely astonished by this unforeseen turn of events. They weren't sure if they would even survive the day. And then, the pirate crews of Rox and Roger clashed in a chaotic free-for-all, creating a level of pandemonium never before seen in the history of God Valley. At that moment, the Navy forces, led by Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp, swiftly arrived on the scene. His sole target was Rox D. Xebec. Seeing this, the soldiers cheered with relief, exclaiming, "Finally, we've been saved." Amidst the chaos engulfing the island, Kuma and Ivankov managed to reach the prize chests. They were on the verge of obtaining 2 devil fruits. However, Big Mom suddenly appeared and snatched the azure dragon fruit from Ivankov. She then intended to seize the remaining devil fruit from Kuma. Following Ivankov's advice, Kuma immediately ate the Nikyu Nikyunomi, as it was their only hope for everyone's survival. We can call this a victory against them. Suddenly, the old man Saturn unexpectedly appeared and used his power to send Kuma flying. He began to insult the boy, claiming that the buccaneer race was born inferior. Either live a life of slavery, or die. This time, Kuma refused to endure the humiliation any longer and confronted Saint Saturn face to face. He couldn't understand why there was such a disparity among people who were all human. If he was already destined to be a slave, then what was the point of even being born? Kuma stated that if he possessed any kind of power, he would definitely use it to save as many people as possible, just like the sun god Nika. Hearing this, Saturn was furious, asserting that this was precisely the reason why the buccaneer tribe faced extinction. On the other side, Roger was trying to stop Rock's malicious actions. This fateful incident would soon fade into the shadows of history. The scene shifts to the Sorbet Kingdom, Kuma's homeland. Many days after the battle at God Valley, Kuma was able to escape thanks to the power of the Nikyu Nikyunomi devil fruit. The trio of Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny went together to Sorbet to hide. All events on God Valley were completely covered up. Newspapers only reported on the heroic actions of Vice Admiral Garp. Surely, Big News Morgan was the editor, he was just a swindler, printing whatever the masterminds of the world government wanted to hear. Therefore, Ivankov's group did not know what else had happened after they left. Meanwhile, Kuma was praying in a church. Although he had saved over 500 people, he still felt guilty for not being able to save everyone. Ginny and Ivankov encouraged Kuma not to blame himself, saying he was truly amazing. At that time, everyone, including Ginny, cried tears of gratitude for Kuma. Due to the effects of the devil fruit, Kuma's hands now had fleshy pads like an animal's. Ivankov believed that hand could bestow blessings and freedom upon everyone. After everything that had happened, Kuma decided to live in the church, a place perfectly suited to his personality. In contrast, Ivankov wanted to set sail to explore the world, living the freest life possible. Ginny, on the other hand, had no intention of following her brother. She wanted to stay at the church to think about what she wanted to do with her life. Kuma promised that as long as he lived, he would never forget Ivankov's face. Next, the two went out to the beach to bid him farewell. They returned to the church, as Ginny, being 4 years older than Kuma, wanted to be a good older sister to him. From then on, they both worked together to earn money and build a new home. Kuma's daily job was chopping firewood and selling it, with Ginny by his side to support and encourage him. Seeing Kuma's gentle and naive nature, the local children began to bully him. However, anyone who teased Kuma was beaten to a pulp by the big sister Ginny. Even so, Kuma didn't hold a grudge, he even used his power to push back their pain. Thanks to this, Kuma gained new friends. Time passed, and Ginny and Kuma continued to live a peaceful life in Sorbet. Ginny had a very healthy appetite and often got hungry quickly. Despite her small body, her eyes would light up whenever there was food. That's why Kuma called Ginny a bottomless stomach. Both Kuma and Ginny had been enslaved since they were 4 years old. Therefore, they understood each other's feelings very well. Having eaten their fill and living in peace, Ginny suddenly burst into tears of happiness. Seeing this, Kuma also started crying, trying to comfort his beloved older sister. This was the first time the two of them had truly experienced such peace and hope. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when I upload new content.